You know the famous joke, a journalist goes around and asks a Russian, a Pole, and an Israeli the same question. He first goes to the Russian. Excuse me, what's your opinion of the meat shortage? The Russian says, what's an opinion? The reporter then goes to the Pole. Excuse me, what's your opinion of the meat shortage? The Pole goes, what's meat? He then goes to the Israeli. Excuse me, what's your opinion of the meat shortage? The Israeli replies, what's excuse me?
Norman Finkelstein speaks for no one but himself and a handful of people who have such hatred for America.
Famous English aristocrat once said that if a person walked down the streets of London telling the truth to people he met, he'd probably be killed before he went a couple hundred meters.
Excuse me, every single member of my family on both sides was exterminated. Both of my parents were in the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising. And it's precisely and exactly because of the lessons my parents taught me and my two siblings that I will not be silent when Israel commits its crimes against the Palestinians.
Norman Finkelstein. He's a professor of political science. He's been at the center of numerous heated academic and political disputes. Who has ever managed to stifle you? We look at you, there's a plethora of books out there, The Rise and Fall of Palestine, The Holocaust Industry, Reflections on the Exploitation of Jewish Suffering, Beyond Chutzpah. You're living proof that the debate hasn't been stifled at all, aren't you? You're not tucked away in some dusty room, unable to speak, are you?
Today, a debate and a new book called The Case for Israel. It's by Alan Dershowitz, who is one of the nation's foremost appellate lawyers, Felix Frankfurter Professor of Law at Harvard Law School. And why don't we start with you laying out the thesis of your latest book, The Case for Israel?
Well, I wanted to write a progressive liberal case for the two-state solution, which I think that most Israelis favor and have favored for a long time. I argue in the book that no country in history faced with comparable threats, both external and internal, has ever tried so hard to comply with the rule of law. I compare Israel favorably to the United States in this regard.
Norman Finkelstein, your response.
I was asked to come in and discuss his new book. I went home, purchased one copy. In fact, I purchased two copies. I read the book very carefully. I did what someone serious does with a book. I read the text. I went through the footnotes. I went through it very carefully. And there's only one conclusion one can reach, having read the book. And this is a scholarly judgment. It's not an ad hominem attack. Mr. Dershowitz has concocted a fraud.
I grew up in Borough Park. Right now, as you're filming, we're in Ocean Parkway near Coney Island. It was a simple neighborhood. I wouldn't call it poor. We were not poor then, we were simple. My father was a factory worker. My mother stayed home with the kids. I don't have acute memories of Borough Park. We were there till I was 8, 1961. We moved to an upwardly mobile, lower middle class neighborhood. It's called Mill Basin. It's also very near here. It was all Jewish. Second generation Jews who were middle-level professionals, accountants, store owners, a smattering of doctors, a few lawyers. Very ambitious and very aggressive. This was an elbow neighborhood. Everybody was out to make it.
47 years ago, Poland and Germany were witness to the Warsaw Ghetto Uprising, and this week I had the great privilege of meeting and interviewing one of the ghetto's few survivors, Mrs. Mary Finkelstein.
I remember that my biggest desire and dream was that if I ever survive, I will stay tall and tell people the story. I now am strictly a pacifist, and I believe that if you kill, you don't achieve. With the first killing, you already lost.
My parents were survivors of Nazi concentration camps. Sometimes I was afraid to ask because I thought it was going to be like opening up the sluice gates. Everything is going to come out, and I wouldn't be able to handle it. I just did not want to know.